Hi, it's Duncan Nisbet, the Roving Reporter for Let's Test, here today with Joshua Lewis. Hi, Josh, how you doing?
Very well, thanks, and you?
Yeah, I can't grumble. Are you keeping busy?
Yes, very busy these days. Lots on the plate.
Yeah. It sounds like it. So we're here to talk today because you are presenting at Let's Test South Africa.
That's right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to attend. I think it's going to be great.
Cool. So we're going to talk a bit about you and a bit about your session without too many spoilers, and then just talk about anything else you want to chat about. So talk to us about Joshua. So what's your background? How come you're now presenting at Let's Test?
So kind of my journey started off. I did electrical engineering at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. Ended up doing my master's in so-called information engineering, which is part of electrical engineering, and kind of got into software after that. And I did my master's in 2005, giving my age away a little bit. But I've been in the industry as a developer for about 10 years now. I've been working the last almost 2 years as a developer coach at a company called DSTV Digital Media. DSTV is the biggest satellite TV operator on the African continent, and the digital media department does all the apps and websites for DSTV. Always been interested in kind of software development as an art and a science and kind of everything that goes around it. How I ended up talking at Let's Test, so I'm quite friendly with some of the organizers in South Africa. So Louise Perold, she's quite a big part of a few of our communities, which is quite nice. And the reason why I wanted to speak at the conference is I think there's a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of damage as a result of those misunderstandings between kind of developers and testers and what their roles are and what testing means. And we kind of have this little in-joke amongst our community with Louise that instead of calling testers, we'll call them QAs or QA engineers. And I'm very much a disciple of the school of thought that you can't test quality in. So in my place of work, there's this, people often talk about QAs, and I'm kind of trying to stamp out that behavior. And so testers, not QA, testers. Because we're all responsible for quality. And I thought, what a great opportunity. I don't think there's been any kind of testing focused conference in let alone Joburg, I think in South Africa, not that I know of. Wow. And I really wanted to learn more and to kind of learn more about testing and get closer to the testing community in South Africa and internationally. I'm a big proponent of test-driven development. And I have certain opinions on how I think software development efforts should be run at an individual, team, and organizational levels. And obviously that the kind of world of testing plays a very big part in that. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to learn. The talk that I'm doing, Are You Getting Value from Your Automated Checks? I did it at a community event in Joburg, I think it was in June this year, and Louise did a talk at the same event, so she was in the audience. And it was very, very interesting for me so I have ideas around testing and automated checks and test-driven development from a developer's point of view. It was interesting to get her feedback at the event from a tester and from a context-driven tester from that kind of point of view. I really wanted to be part of the conference to get that same feedback. So if I could do that same talk to an audience of testers, what a great opportunity. And to be at the conference and attend the other sessions as well is really exciting for me.
That'd be really cool. So you're kind of putting yourself into the room of critical thinkers, the people who are going to take your model and challenge it. And
absolutely.
A bit to see if it stands up. Brilliant.
And to extend my own thinking, I've kind of discovered that I've got a very narrow view of testing. So kind of the original title of my talk was, Are You Getting Value from Your Automated Tests? And now it's changed to, Are You Getting Value from Your Automated Checks? Because what I understand as a test and what testers understand as a test and what context-driven testers understand as a test are completely different things, right? So, we kind of talking at cross purposes, and I think we could do so much better as an industry, and achieve so much more as well.
Yeah, I think, so obviously I got from the type presentation that you're aware versus, so I wanted to pull on that thread a little bit. And I guess Lou had something to do with that kind of education piece.
Absolutely.
You still there, Josh? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it just broke up a little bit.
Did you catch my question?
About Louise being part of the education.
Yeah, the testing versus checking.
Yes, absolutely. I've tried to read a little bit of James Bach and Michael Bolton and those kinds of guys, but it's obviously easier when you're kind of in the room with someone and have those kind of high bandwidth conversations.
That's cool. Yeah, I know for me, it definitely cleared up a lot of confusion. So when I was saying testing and someone else was saying testing, we were obviously talking about a different activity, and it was just like it just led that misinterpretation led to several conundrums. And I think once you start changing that language to like, your stuff's just checking what you already know, and I'm testing to find new information.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. And that's how I can help you. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then the whole idea around, a tester's role being to provide information and a level of confidence to the people that need to make the decisions. It's, these are the things we found. This is how much time we've had. These are our recommendations, kind of thing. I find that conversation quite interesting as well. And that's not always something that's well understood. And because it's not well understood, then there's, again, a lot of inefficiencies and thrashing about and damage.
Yeah. So, so a bit about your sessioning. Can you give us one dogma as an example for us to kind of to discuss right now?
So the central dogma, and so the talk is really about a journey that I had over the last probably year and a half. So it's from personal experiences that I've had, and it's really questioning that the central dogma is developers should start with very low-level, fine-grained automated checks. And the whole talk is centralized around challenging that dogma and why we should challenge it and why we shouldn't start with those kinds of checks.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's really that, there's a whole spectrum of different kind of automated checks. We tend to focus on a certain type, but there's a whole range. And there's even beyond that, there's a whole nomenclature of automated checks. And my kind of question is, why do we care? Why have different names? Why can't we just talk about automated checks?
That's interesting. So what problems have you seen in your experience that with different names and different kind of variations of automated checks have led to this conclusion?
So the classic one is unit test. If you've got an audience of 20 people and you ask what is a unit test, you'll probably get 4 to 5 to 6 different definitions. And when you start talking about as unit testing is such a central part of delivering software, and we can't even agree on what that means, well, why that makes me question, why do we use the name? What is a unit? So my background is engineering. So, in 5 years of tertiary level engineering training, you kind of get exposed to a little bit more than just the software side of it. And I kind of tried to do a bit of investigation around, and I did it via Twitter, around kind of the originations of the name unit testing and how it came about. But again, why do we find that such a useful term? Why do we feel the need to talk about unit tests, integration tests, system tests, characterization tests? So I kind of, through the talk, question that throw it out a little bit and then reconstruct it a little bit at the end. From the point of view of value.
Cool. Yeah. In terms of business value.
Yeah, earned value. Yeah, and also to become explicit about what different checks and different tests have value to different stakeholders, and we should start having the conversation around, well, who are those stakeholders? Why do they need the information, and when do they need that information? Because that information, the different information, is useful at different times throughout the life cycle of a software development effort. And it also comes into a big part of that as well is kind of the context of the company you're in. So if you're a startup with 6 months of capital, or you're a 100-year-old bank, the type of tests you should be doing should be quite different.
You would hope, right, that the context drives the the type of testing.
Unfortunately, it hasn't been in my experience, and that's the issue.
Yeah. So there's an email landed in my inbox today about generative integration testing. Ever heard about that?
I think I may have come across it, but it's not ringing any bells.
No, I'll send you a link later. Apparently, the test determine, based on a set of rules, what path they should run through the system and when. And there's another example about, like, there's another algorithm that determines what tests to run when. So rather than the typical run all the unit tests first so they fail fast, then run the integration test, then run the GUI test, then run the manual stuff, which is the typical kind of pipeline I've seen. It turns out on its head and just said, no, it's from past experience, I should run this test right now, this check right now, sorry. Yeah.
So that kind of dovetails with my thinking as well, is that, so I don't want to give too much away, but the most valuable tests we can run from a user's perspective are the tests that the checks that we should run first, or the checks that we should write first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't do any more spoilers, man. Cool. Well, I'll send you over some links later of what's kind of probing me at the moment. That'd be fantastic. Cool. So while we're on Let's Test, what else in the program is taking your fancy?
So there are quite a few sessions that look interesting. There are quite a few on communication and communication interaction models, which I find quite interesting. I'm quite looking forward to those. A lot of the work that I do as a coach is around communication and making a lot of the implicit stuff as explicit as possible. So my kind of big kick at the moment is around culture, high trust, and psychological safety. And communication is probably one of the biggest aspects of culture within a team, within an organization. I'm always keen to learn about that kind of stuff. I also saw there's a session on user mapping, which I'm looking forward to as well. So I've kind of heard a lot about user mapping. I'm kind of interested in it, but just haven't prioritized reading up on that topic specifically yet. So I'm quite keen to learn more there. Cool. And just to get so I did a workshop with Carsten Felberg. He was at Agile Africa in August in Joburg, and I did one of his workshops and really enjoyed it. So just getting views from international speakers as well, I find quite interesting, because South African, the industry and society is quite unique, quite different in a lot of ways. So it's always different to see other ways of being and other ways of doing, and get challenged a bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I mean, even in Northwest UK, so I'm based around Liverpool, Manchester, there's kind of different views from testing there than there is in the Midlands and there is in London. So it's just different companies just doing different things. So it's just really great to get them Southerners up north and come and talk to us about what they're doing, and we go down south and just say, well, wow, you're doing this. It's just kind of gets you out of your bubble, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's the same in South Africa with kind of Durban, Cape Town, and some of the other smaller cities around, where there's little pockets of players in the industry. And not only that, I mean, I kind of when you said generative integration tests, I've been chatting to some functional programmers lately, and they've got this technique. I think it's called property tests, which is also a different kind of declarative test, where very different to my experience. But again, wow, that's very interesting. I can see the value in that. How do I do it? Tell me more. So it's just very cool to get the opportunity to see these, be part of different communities and get different points of view.
Yeah. As I'm starting to look into consumer-driven contracts and contract tests. So when you have like the provider and the consumer, and just kind of making sure that you're not going to break the stuff your consumers consuming. Yeah. But I'm just trying to get a champion because it's kind of more technical than I'm comfortable with. So I'm trying to find a champion to kind of like help me with it. So I'm just going around like, have you heard of consumer driven contracts? No. Contract tests? No. I was like, I'll find someone one day.
Let's chat about it more. So it sounds interesting. Let's chat about it further.
Yeah. I'll send you over some links. just keeping my brain whirring. Cool. So now you mentioned that you're a dev coach.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how are you finding the transition from being the guy writing the code to coaching the others writing the code? So I only ask because I've made a similar leap. So moving from doing the actual testing to helping others help do their testing.
So what's interesting for me is the reason I've moved. There's several reasons why I've kind of tried the transition. One, I get bored quite quickly.
Right.
I'm also not always that fulfilled writing certain kinds of code. So it gets quite repetitive, and once you've written your fifth or sixth website, it's kind of not as fulfilling anymore. I will say that what's interesting for my role is the idea and the structure behind my role is that I believe in, and my manager who I've worked with before, the kind of belief is you can't really understand the problems that a team is facing or the opportunities that a team has without getting your hands dirty in the code.
Yeah, agreed.
So there's kind of the management side of it, or the workflow management. It's kind of the agile space, the lean space. How you organize people, how you organize the work, how you kind of influence the culture. And there's a technology side of it, which is the code and the checks and all of that. And there's quite a big intersection point between those two worlds, and you'll reach limiting kind of factors on both sides of both of those worlds. So you can only go do so much improvement on the workflow side of things, and before you hit a wall from the technology side, and vice versa. And there's opportunities in both of those worlds. So part of the kind of intent behind my engagement with the teams that I'm working with is that I do get dirty with the code. Not necessarily writing code to deliver product, but pairing with the developers, doing code reviews, those kinds of things. At the moment, I'm Scrum mastering for a team, so I'm doing slightly less of the dev coachy stuff that I was doing before. So I'm deliberately trying not to be too hands-on technology-wise with this particular team. But most of the teams that I've been with before, I have been quite involved. So it's interesting because one of the things I learned about myself in the last couple of years is I need to be writing code to be happy. I get quite grumpy when I go for too long without writing code. I enjoy writing code, and I think in this space, when you stop writing code, you lose touch and you lose context quite quickly. Or you can
Definitely, yeah.
And it's also, the developers, generally people involved in software development, you kind of have to prove yourself to earn the respect.
Yeah.
Like they don't respond to authority figures just because you're an authority figure. Not that I want to be an authority figure, but it's kind of, hey, listen, I'm not just saying this because I read it in a book somewhere. I've written code, I've experimented, I've tried this. I've burned my fingers.
And
and I think this is a different way of doing it, which has these trade-offs, which I think you might find interesting. So there's that aspect to it as well. But I kind of vacillate back and forth around, well, how much code do I want to write? How much code do I not want to write? How much do I want to be involved in the process and the culture and change agency and trying to get people to change behaviors? And so it's interesting because kind of each day is different, and I've got a lot of autonomy in my role as well, which is quite nice.
Cool. Yeah. Because I'm finding this is probably obvious for everyone who's been doing it for a while, but like you need to get your hands dirty to understand the problem for yourself, because the people communicating with you. So when you say, right, come and talk to me, what's your biggest bugbear? What's causing you pain? They either miscommunicate what their pain is, or they don't share it. So you end up going off at a tangent and like tackling the thing that isn't really the problem. So you'll go to one guy and you say, I am having real problem with like pieces of work just being delivered to me, and I don't get any upfront visibility of it. You know, oh wow, that's a real problem, right? Okay, well, let's try and get you in the cycle a lot sooner. Then you speak to other people, like, what are you talking about? He's in every kickoff that we have for every story. It's like he's there. He can't be any more. And you're like, wow, okay. And it's just so I'm kind of using a tactic of like following the work. So pairing up with another tester and just following a piece of work from beginning to end, like one life cycle. Just to sit in and ask him, is this kind of typical of like this story? And it'd be like yes or no. But it's just it's like you can talk to someone and they'll tell you something, and it could be completely different to the actual coalface. Just
And what I found as well is that people often have quite a narrow view of their own little world. Not saying from any negative point of view. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there's not always somebody looking holistically at the whole system. And often when people do feel pain, it's often a symptom of a deeper root cause, and they're not necessarily aware of enough of the system to say, oh, well, we're feeling the pain here, but the problem is actually 3 or 4 steps previous in the process. So a classic one that I've encountered a few times is, I don't want to get too technical, but people have problems with version control branches, for example.
Oh, correct. Yeah.
And actually, the fundamental root cause is you guys are taking on too much work at a time. You know, like if you cut down the amount of work you were doing, you wouldn't need to branch, you wouldn't need to feel the pain. So I can help you sort out your branching and merging issues, but that's not really going to solve anything. And again, if you just kind of, as you mentioned, if you're just talking to the developers and you're not really involved with product owners or business analysts or those kinds of things, then you only have so much influence and ability to solve the root cause.
Yeah, that's it. You are kind of the outsider looking in, aren't you? It's kind of how much influence do you have? But it's an actual gem of an example is like, every team member was telling me about this one gripe independently, just like, this is a real bugbear for me, blah, blah, blah. So the whole team, testers, programmers, BAs, for like the kind of technical aspect. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's interesting. I said, and do like, I use the guys upstairs in the proverbial sense, like, do like the senior management know? Well, yeah, we mentioned it. I was like, right, okay, cool. Go to the senior management and say, right, this is my number one priority. You need to tackle this. This is causing everyone pain. Oh, really? That's the first time I've heard about it. You're like, really? It's like, they said they've been doing it for 3 months and they're not getting anywhere. And this is the first time you've heard about it? It's like, right, okay, something's going wrong somewhere. So I've just found myself as being like the glue in the middle. It's kind of nice in a way, isn't it? You're like, so to the guys, the development team, you're going, right, do you understand why you're doing this piece of work? Nope. I was like, right, okay, well, here's the business value. Oh, right, okay. Then to the business guys, you understand why they want to do this refactoring exercise, because they're dealing with a big ball of mud. Oh, right, okay. Then, yeah, it's kind of like rewarding to see that kind of aha moment, isn't it, on the faces?
And that's all about communication and culture, right? You have a technical background that allows you to glue those pieces together. But fundamentally, all that I'm trying to achieve is, so what's holding you back from having the conversation? So here's party A, here's party B. I'll facilitate it, but I'll facilitate it 2 or 3 times, and then you shouldn't have a need for me to be there.
Yeah, that's a classic, isn't it? But you're just doing what we could do. I'm like, yes. What's stopping you from doing it? Oh, they're just kind of, it's getting the blinkered vision, isn't it? They're optimizing their own part rather than seeing the bigger picture. Yeah.
And,
cool.
and we struggle with that a lot in our environment. I mean, we so focused on kind of our team level, but there's a whole world outside of the team that's it's almost too late in the day to when one gets to the team. There's so much opportunity outside we call our team rooms war rooms. So our cross-functional in war rooms, there's so much opportunity outside the war room, but that's also where the difficult work is. Trying to convince, as you said, convincing a product owner or a portfolio manager to allow time to refactor. Not always so easy.
No, that's it. Until you start putting it in dollars. I found when you start putting a price on it, things twig a lot quicker.
Absolutely. Opportunity cost.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and transaction costs as well. That's a big one for me. It's just like, why are your batch sizes so big? Are we getting technical now? Yeah, because it costs. Yeah, we have to batch it because of the overhead of merging. Oh, right. Okay. What a surprise. Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it there before we go off on one. Cool. All right. Well, that's my questions, Joshua. So, is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else you want to say before we hang up?
So I find it very interesting that you've kind of come to a similar place, but from the testing side as opposed to the programming side. Very cool. I think that's be a very nice mix of, and it's also cool that a lot of the things that we speak about resonates with each other. So you'll talk about large batch sizes, and I'm like, hallelujah, kind of.
Yeah, but it's really cool, isn't it? That like us being, I'd say, tech focused, can have kind of changed our shift our perception and say, well, actually, with all that tech experience we've got, now let me learn about the business focus and saying like, what does that mean for the people who are paying the money? It's just like, and having that shift in language, isn't it? Really, just
And how do you put that all together? So, and a great book for me is kind of the Lean Startup, which kind of puts a lot of those ideas together. And a lot of the stuff I struggle with, again, the idea of trying to do too much is you've got that iron triangle. Fundamentally, you've got a system that has a capacity. You can change that for a little while, but at the end of the day, you're going to kick yourself in the teeth because people burn out and leave. And then where are you going to be? You think you've got problems today. Wait until half the developers and testers leave. And I find that a lot of businesses are quite short-sighted, and maybe it's the economy we're in at the moment, but you can't shove 100 cars through a piece of intersection that's designed for 50 cars. It's just not physically possible. And it's really as simple as that. It's just getting everybody in the room to understand that and to understand how it affects them and to start prioritizing and thinking deeply about what are we actually trying to achieve here. What are the kind of the big goals? And then what are the options to get there rather than, was it following the roadmap rather than the road? Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. Thanks, Joshua. So how long now? It's not long, is it? Till 16th of November?
Sure. Don't remind me.
And yours is on day 2. So you've got that hanging over you for day 1 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually speaking at a conference. We've got the Scrum gathering next week, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah. I'm speaking kind of the morning of day 1, which is quite nice. I can get it over with and kind of relax after.
Yeah. Done and dusted. I think quite a few of you guys are going to be there.
Yeah. That's a great conference.
Yeah, cool. Okay, nice one. All right, well, thanks, Joshua. I'm going to hang up there.
Great, thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it, and good luck if I don't speak to you beforehand.
Thank you.
Cheers, Josh. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.